And now we got a guy who mixes the law with laughs, and he makes his courtroom jargon sound like a punchline. He is a New York attorney who's got wit just like a stand-up comedian and all the wisdom of a seasoned judge. Welcome, the impressive Joe from Good Logic.
Wow, that was the greatest intro I ever got before in my life. Thank you, George. I am totally clipping that. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Viewers Discussion. I am your host, Joe Neerman, a.k.a. Good Logic. Not going to kid you. Not going to kid you. I've been feeling really down for the last couple of days. It's like, I don't feel it. I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. I'm like, I don't even know. I don't even know what to say at this point. I was like, I'm not feeling it. So frustrated with this whole Fani decision. So frustrated. Feeling so good. So totally. I spent the weekend, like, I had my both my daughter, my married daughters here as well as my youngest, and one of my sons, and grandkids. And on Shabbos, I was able to, like, basically block out the world and not think about any of this stuff and just be totally like, life is good. Life is good. Thank God. Very blessed. Very blessed. Not worry about any of this stuff. Try figuring out what I'm supposed to get my wife for her birthday, which is tomorrow. And just very, very, like, just not in the mood to deal with this. And last night, like, I was feeling zero inspiration to do a show. So I was like, I'm not going to go out there and do a show if I'm just not feeling it. I'm just not feeling it. And I even felt that way all day today. I was like, God. So angry at Judge McAfee. I am so angry at that boy. So angry at that young man. God. Really, really annoyed. But life has to go on. Life has to go on. So I basically figured, you know what we'll do? What we will do is we will go forward and keep pushing forward. If I can't push forward, how the hell can I ask any of you to do that? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to push forward. Fighting against these injustices, one after another, all these ridiculous persecutions that we see going on of anyone who dares raise their head up against the Uniparty, most specifically targeting of late President Donald Trump, and fighting back against it. Fighting back against it. That's what we're doing. And there you go. No worries. Life goes on. Thank you, Charles. Thank you. Yeah, we all have to keep working. Just because we're upset with how things go sometimes doesn't mean you can just, like, curl into a ball. So I took a day to sort of just swallow it all and then move onward from that and go forward with the show must go on. The show must go on. And so it shall. I was thinking about sharing with you a complaint that was filed against Fani Willis in her official capacity as District Attorney of Atlanta. I'm just going to call this to your attention. What I want to call to your attention is a complaint has been filed by Judicial Watch, Inc. This complaint, in case you're wondering, this complaint, which, as I said, filed by Judicial Watch, is based on FOIA requests that they made that Fani and her office seem to lie to them. And specifically, I expect that they'll ultimately be successful once this litigation has enough time to process. The complaint, that's not it. That's not what I wanted. It's not that screen. I wanted this. I did this wrong. There you go. And I want you to know something. I'm not going to be obsessing about Fani, on a day-by-day basis. I'm not going to be obsessing about Fani on a day-by-day basis. I will drop you a show for a little horn blast for that. But as you asked me to get with the Fani partly issue, I'll tell you. Yeah, and happy birthday, Shauna. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pam. It's not going to be something that I'm going to be doing every single day. Definitely not. But this is still fresh, and I actually think that plowing through this helps me feel like, yeah, this fight is a battle was lost, but the war is far from over. And we're gonna keep plowing forward. So there you go. But it's not gonna be like an every night kind of thing. Let's talk more Fani Willis, because there's a lot of other fights that need to be addressed. A lot of other battles that are to be fought. But I do want to call this to your attention. So Judicial Watch, I'm not going to spend more than like 3 minutes on this. I'm going to wrap this up for you in 3 minutes. Judicial Watch basically tries getting information and bringing it to the public's attention. They filed a complaint against Fani Willis because they made a FOIA request to Fani Willis. And when they made this FOIA request, what they asked for, the request to the county on the Open Records Act, or OCGA, said all documents and communications sent to, received from, or relating to special counsel Jack Smith or any employees in his office, and all documents, communications sent to or received from the United States House January 6th Committee or any of its employees. So these are the documents that they were requesting pursuant to a FOIA request. And when they did and went through this, the county acknowledged receipt on August 22nd, and later that day, or the next day, they came back and plaintiff received an email from the county saying, we got your request, and later the same day saying, after carefully reviewing your request, we don't have the responsive records, meaning there is nothing. There's no communication between Fulton County and Jack Smith or the January 6th committee. But what we learned is that the county's representation about saying they're not having any records is not true. Just not true. Specifically, attached to a December 5th, 2023 letter from the chairman, Jim Jordan, U.S. House of Representative Committee, says that we got certain records from you, but not enough. And about communications, a letter from Willis to Chairman Benny G. Thompson of the U.S. House of Representatives Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. The letter requests assistance from the Select Committee and suggests dates when Willis and her staff were available to travel to Washington. So obviously there was communication about travel there, and you said there was nothing. To meet with the Select Committee staff, the letter also offers Willis' email address and the email address of Miss Willis' assistant coordinate future communications, and we actually want them to supply an honest answer. Willis' letter to Chairman Thompson plainly responsive to the request, yet was neither produced to plaintiff in response to the request nor claimed to be subject to exemption. And then there were other recent news reports of other records indicating that Representative Willis' office went to D.C. and met with the J6 Select Committee. And accordingly, they're asking for them to turn over to a court order compelling them to turn over the records. So that's the complaint that was filed against them. Judicial Watch tends to be pretty good at being successful in these lawsuits and getting the records eventually. So it's nice to see that they're pushing Fani along, but that's not really what we're focusing on here tonight. Instead, we're focusing on the ethics complaint that was filed with the Georgia board, the Georgia bar against Fani Willis. And the nature of that complaint and the strength of that complaint determine whether or not there's got much, if any, chance of success. Now, when an ethics complaint is filed to the bar, normally, when it's filed against a private attorney, it has to be filed by the individual who has retained that attorney. There has to be some sort of direct nexus between you and that attorney. Imagine you see someone on the street and he does something that's really offensive to you, and you find out he's an attorney. You can't. I don't think that many bar associations would give much credence if you got mad at that man or woman and said, "I'm going to file a complaint against the bar against you." There has to be some sort of nexus to them on one level or another. This complaint was not filed by someone who has direct nexus to Fani Willis. However, he's filing it, I believe, in the context of him being a resident of Fulton County for the last several decades. He's the same individual who filed a complaint against her against the Board of Commissioners. Now he's going after her law license, which is an interesting development. We'll see whether or not the Georgia State Bar believes that an individual citizen has a standing to go after the district attorney for breaches of her ethics, or whether they might theoretically, what they could do is they could just dismiss it out of hand. I mean, that's definitely a possibility. I don't want to rule that possibility out. That is definitely a possibility. So certainly don't want to build up anyone's hopes that this is definitely going to result in there being some sort of punishment for him, but we'll see. Who knows? Who knows? All right, I do have it here somewhere. Where are you? That's not it. Judicial Watch closed. Where are you? I don't know where it went on me. I'm gonna have to pull this up again. I apologize for that. Out of here. There it is. Okay, it took a moment. Sorry about that. All right, so this is the table of contents. This was provided courtesy of Phil Holloway. I still have no idea how this guy managed to get his hands on this, because I've searched the internet trying to find a direct source of this. Normally, when you file with the grievance committee, like I said, it's you have a relationship with the attorney. It's a private matter that's between you and the attorney that the ethics committee or the bar association will handle between you and your attorney. And there's communications back and forth. It's not something that necessarily is a public record of it. You can understand this because sometimes someone might be vindictive and trying to go after an attorney, and in case their claims are completely wrongful, why should the attorney be wrongfully embarrassed? Now, if there's punishment against them, there might be some sort of publication of that. I'm not really sure about that, but there's certainly be something noted in their status and record, which would be publicly available if they end up getting punished. I don't know what to dear bar. Ah! That's pretty funny. Anyhow, so let's get into this complaint, which was filed by this gentleman. I think his first name is Steven. It's definitely Kramer. And I wonder if he's related to that woman who's running for DA against him, because that's kind of, they both have the same last name, which seems very coincidental to me. He writes, I have no legal experience. I am not, nor have I been an attorney, nor have I formally studied the law in that regard. Please accept my apologies if my complaint is not in the accepted legal format, or if I have not held it to the standard with the precision and or accuracy you may expect for formal legal complaints. Also, please excuse any poor grammar, improper terms. Instead, look at the intent of the complaint from your experience in the context. Please also excuse any typos. Now, we saw, and I've reviewed on this channel the prior complaint. This is a more fleshed out complaint. That was like 7 pages. And this is like 22. So this is a far more fleshed out complaint. And I think it's been enhanced with developments that we've seen from the evidentiary hearing. The first complaint that this individual filed with the Board of Commissioners was filed back in February, before this evidentiary hearing had concluded. I think it was filed like on February 27th or thereabouts. This was filed March 7th. And I think that in the interim is when we had the hearing, my recollection. But don't quote me on the dates. Parts of the hearing, certainly. All right. Although I have an informational technology background, I'm not associated with CellHawk. This software tool will become relevant in my discussion violating a State Bar of Georgia rule. This complaint is mine and mine alone. no one else wrote it. So you're saying I'm doing this alone. I don't know about that. I don't know if he's really working alone. I find it difficult to believe he's working completely alone, frankly. The words, thoughts, and meanings are all mine. When I use the first person plural pronoun in this document, is merely no-sism, which is a common device of an editorial we. All right. That's a pretty expensive SAT word there, no-sism. I wouldn't come up with that off the top of my head. My grievance against Georgia Fulton County District Attorney Fani Taifa Willis. Did you know her middle name was Taifa? No, you probably did not. I did not. When I cite the case below, also referred to as the election case below without any other clarification, refers to the state of Georgia versus Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, Michael Roman, et al. So that's what he's. So whenever I say election case, and I'll tell you this, normally if it was written by an attorney, they would capitalize election case. You make it a defined term. It becomes a term of art throughout the rest of the documents. You'll frequently see lawyers, whether they're drafting legal documents or even a letter, that we will make reference to something, and then you put in parentheses and quotation marks a capital, it'll be like election case, and you'll just have capital E, capital C, and that way. And that's how you define the term as whatever preceded the parentheses. You might even say here and after election case. But so that is indicating to me that he's not really being assisted by an attorney. Maybe he is engaging in no-sism. I don't know. Gnosticism? Gnosticism. I guess like it's Gnosticism. It's not no-sism. It's Gnosticism. Not familiar with that term. No. I guess it's the opposite of agnosticism. Not sure. I can admit to not knowing. The guy's one up on me on that one. The case includes parallel election cases brought by D.A. Willis and the Georgia Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organizations, the GA RICO, or just RICO Act, indictment. Any statement below constitutes an allegation, and our opinion and or interpretation, even if not explicitly stated as such, and should not be construed as a proven fact. Okay. All right. We leave it to the courts and the State Bar of Georgia to use compelled documents and discovery to determine the facts. Now, I'll tell you this much. When you file a complaint with an ethics committee, they will normally notify the complained of attorney of the complaint and give a time parameter for 30 days. If you ask for extension time, you might get 60 days. She's Fani Willis. She might get 90 days to respond to the complaint and provide whatever documentation is necessary in order to help substantiate the reasons that you think the complaint does not warrant any sort of punishment. So you sort of give your explanation for your version of the events, of the complaint of events. And then they take that, and then the Bar Association can do any of a number of things. In theory, they can conduct an investigation of their own. They can ask for supplemental documents if they have questions about some of the responses that the attorney has given in response to the complaint. And normally that's the end of it. There's not usually a hearing. Now, I'm not saying that that's beyond the purview of the Georgia Bar Association. I certainly have no knowledge whatsoever as to how they conduct themselves. I don't even know if they would deem themselves in a position to hear a complaint against Fani Willis, A, and B, whether they might start questioning whether this individual has standing to raise a complaint, and they may. And I'll tell you, I fully expect that Fani Willis is going to claim that he doesn't have standing. Whether or not standing is something that they will remove this based on purely standing alone, I can't tell you that they will not. I personally am not a big fan of the whole standing issue in general, because I think standing is a way to try and say, standing is so almost in a way, it's kind of like an ad hominem attack. The weakness, it's an ad hominem fallacy. If truth is on your side, it doesn't matter who's asking the question. It doesn't matter whether it's someone you have a nexus to or not. It doesn't matter if it's, if the person who's raising it has all sorts of character flaws. If they ask a question and you respond with an ad hominem saying, well, why should it matter? You're too poor. You're a loser. You're a schmuck. You're evil. You're a racist. Whatever it is, that's not answering the actual complaint. It's just saying the source here is not someone who we should really be engaging with. But what about the content of what they said? Well, I'm not engaging with it. So it's like, so essentially that's what standing is. Standing is the source here doesn't have the power to raise the question for us to start addressing this question. So if it was someone who had a source, who was sourced, and we attributed it to them, then what would you say? To me, it's almost like it's a weak thing. Now, I could understand in this context why standing might be more of a relevant thing, and the reason it could be more relevant here is because, in theory, what if there was 1,000 people who filed grievances against an elected official like Fani Willis? Is she going to have to answer all, and each of them are raising different things? Does she have to answer every schmuck who decides to write something in? I mean, you have to sort of apply the law in a way that is logical and reasonable. Would you want your elected official of your city, the district attorney of your county, would you want them to have to spend thousands of hours every month answering complaints from various residents? So let's assume the person has a lot of political enemies. They say, I'm going to file a complaint again based on X, Y, Z, and that over and over and over again that district attorney or someone from their staff should be obligated to keep responding to every one of these rather than just saying they don't have standing, I have no issue. You can understand why standing would become something that might be a proper perspective. Now, despite the fact that I personally believe that Fani Willis is a disgusting human being who is corrupt and has abused her position of power, that doesn't mean that applying, just because that happens to be true in her individual case, I can recognize the fact that you sort of want to apply a law that's going to, a rule that's going to apply for every district attorney or every elected attorney, any attorney who's in an elected office or in any sort of position of power that is likely to be facing a lot of complaints based on the political nature of the type of work that they're doing, that you can understand that you don't want them to have to basically spend a third of their career answering complaints from political enemies. So that could be a basis that they would say, no, you need to have standing here. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, but we will see. I will tell you this, some of you were talking about Fannie Smith bowing out. I do think if she was smart, she would bow out. I think she has too much hubris to bow out of this case. She's too much arrogance and hubris. She's like, no, I can't give my enemies that kind of win. But if she actually gave the slightest damn, she would just recuse herself from this case and say, from henceforward, my staff is going to be handling it. If she gave the slightest damn about justice, she actually was a quality person. She would have done that a long time ago. She was a quality person. Let's not kid ourselves. Let me just poke in here on Rumble, make sure. I mean, is there any? I mean, I think that's a pretty. I don't think I'm going on a limb. I'm not going on a limb when I say that. Oh, look what I found over here. So that's a little reminder, because I am at 93,950 on YouTube, and I'm at 10,712 on Rumble. So that's my little reminder for you to like and subscribe. It only says subscribe, but it does mean like and subscribe. There's one button. That's like the global button that the guy's having there. All right. Anyhow, so if you can do that and help get me over that hump to the 94, there's no reason that shouldn't happen tonight. Okay. Moving forward. I've never met DA Willis, Nathan Wade, nor to the best of my knowledge, any staff in the Fulton County DA's office. My sources are local, national, and international publications, arguments in the election case, the Georgia Code, and related codes, rules, and laws, review articles, legal rulings, my previous ethics filing. See, that was his previous ethics filing, and specific online references. Most of them have website addresses, URL references in the footnotes. All right. Background. Oh, this got to be bigger. Oh no, this is not gonna be good like this. Phil. I don't like it. Still too small. Still too small. That's big enough, I guess. All right. They previously filed a complaint with Fulton County Board of Ethics regarding Fani Willis' actions up to and just before appearance in Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee's court. We believed, and nevertheless believe, Willis acted unethically according to Fulton County Code of Ethics. The complaint was rejected by the Ethics Board Counsel on March 5th. It was not because of the arguments or contents themselves, because the Board Counsel stated that Willis is a state constitutional officer, part of the judicial branch, and not a Fulton County officer or employee. We disagree with that conclusion, as we believe that many of her duties and funding sources cross the line between judicial and county officer. We believe that she still violated the Fulton County Ethics Code, regardless of whether or not she was covered by it. She should be setting an example for Fulton County officers and employees to follow. With her appearance in McAfee's court on February 15, 2024, and the events that follow, we now believe an ethics reprimand, while warranted, is not sufficient punishment for DA Willis. She doubled down on her statements, showing absolutely no remorse. Instead, blamed everyone else for her actions. Belligerent on the stand, combative and disrespectful to the defendant's lawyers, repeatedly tried to block testimony from relevant witnesses, and appeared, in my layman's opinion, unbecoming of both an officer of the court and a public official. In fact, Judge McAfee confirmed that by referring to her conduct as unprofessional. Subsequent revelations, and he's talking about her conduct on the stand, was unprofessional. Subsequent revelations seriously call into question her veracity and her handling of such an important job as district attorney. Following represents our opinions of Georgia Bar rule sections we believe she violated. Quote the relevant parts of each rule, leaving the parts that aren't. Next. Myself here. I'll do it this way. Next, we discuss the alleged violations of the specific rule. Many of the violations bear a maximum penalty of disbarment. Overall, we think it would be difficult to come to any other conclusion. So, harsh address here. Harsh address. Harsh address. CA Human. I responded to you on Locals, by the way. Fani will never recuse herself. Personal interest is too great now. We saw the untouchable attitude in court. Yeah. Oh, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. She also feels like I'm sure she feels like if she were to recuse herself, that would be an admission of some sort of level. She's too insecure to ever recuse herself. I think that's pretty evident. She's too insecure. And she's craving the attention. So, yeah, there's certain narcissistic tendencies there. Okay. Let's get into Georgia Bar rule section potentially violated. Number one, the rule 1.15 fees. The rule addresses honesty about fees. A lawyer shall not make an agreement for charge or collect an unreasonable fee or unreasonable amount for expenses. Factors to be considered in determining the reasonableness of a fee include the following: the time and labor required, the novelty and difficulty of the questions involved, the skill requisite to perform the legal service properly. 3, the fee customarily charged in the locality for similar legal services. 7, I guess this comes from the different factors of Rule 1.5. The experience, reputation, ability of the lawyer or lawyers performing the services. Rule 1.5 closes with this penalty. The maximum penalty for a violation of this rule is disbarment. Now, normally it's not talking about someone who's paying money to an attorney, so that's a little bit of a problem that you have with respect to this complaint. Meaning, it's if you overcharge someone, in theory, you can be disbarred. If you're working on behalf of the county and decide to pay someone too much money, which is certainly where he's going here with respect to payments and Nathan Wade, that's not the normal type of overcharging of fees. Meaning, she's rubber stamping fees to a third party. Not that she's collecting grossly disproportionate fees for herself. And I know that we can obviously recognize a claim here that it's designed to enrich herself. I'm simply saying it's another step beyond. I also don't think that fees are particularly the amount of fees he charged, just as far as the overall number. I don't think that is. I think that's one of the weaker arguments. But we'll get into it. What do you got here? As a public official, Fani Willis' clients are the residents of Fulton County. Fulton County, which is the capital of the state of Georgia, also hears cases for the state as a whole. Therefore, her client is also Georgia. That's a little bit of a stretch. When her office gets compensated by either Georgia or Fulton County, she must be responsible to them as her clients. Okay. They're not her clients. Because at the end of the day, she, as an elected official, they're not her clients. If she was retained by them, then maybe they'll be her clients. As an elected official, it's hard for them to really call them her clients. That's like saying, you hire the president, he's like the manager of the United States. So, he's a public servant. I get that. But then you're not a client of the president of the United States. And I can't really, I have to recognize an argument that sounds to me compelling versus something that sounds like you're trying to find a way to shoehorn something in here, which is just creative perspective, but not a reality. Of course, the county and state aren't just some amorphous entity. They're comprised of all the citizens of the respective governments, and it is these citizens who pay her salary, subordinates, and all the other accoutrements of her office. Okay. I think that you can basically talk about, it's not the fees. I wouldn't call this a fee thing. I would call this as far as corruptly trying to rip money out of Fulton County. But that's not really fees. If anything, it's more like a misappropriation of funds. But I get that he's trying to basically attach any possible theory here to go after her. I don't like and I know it's probably he's going numerical order of the rules, and rule 1.5 is, probably the first one in the book that he came across. I'm simply saying it's generally, if you're going to draft something like this, if you live in Fulton County and you want to go after her, or you want to go after Dana Nessel in Michigan, which is probably good reasons to go after Dana Nessel as well. So if you want to go after these folks, rather than going with like, okay, this is the first one in the book and I'm going to go in number order, it's always best to put out your strongest arguments first, because otherwise you're sort of making, you're drowning out your own voice. What do I mean when I say you're drowning out your own voice? In general, whenever you're presenting any sort of argument that you want to convince someone of your side, there are a few things you're fighting against whenever you're trying to convince somebody of anything. So if you're in a formal debate, and this is a debate because it's him versus Fani Willis in this context, Fanny's going to say she's innocent of these claims or didn't act improperly with respect to these complaints, and the complainer is saying that that's not true. So in this context, he's pitting himself against Fani Willis. Well, part of what you're doing when you're arguing to a third party and trying to convince that person, so you're fighting against Fani Willis, your adversary. You're also fighting against the judge's own, whoever's sitting through it, through the limitations of their own mind. Meaning, we are people. If we hear people, and the natural tendency of all of us is to be very selective in where we give our attention. You're very selective. You're a very discerning individual, which is why you're here watching this show right now, because you're very discerning and you recognize that this is the best, most productive use of my time, most entertaining and informative, all at the same time I'm getting to hang out with a bunch of really cool folks in chat. See, you're discerning in your choice of where you're spending your time and your attention. Similarly, a judge, like any other individual, is going to be discerning in where they're going to give their focus. If you start out of the gate with an argument that is relatively like, and that's where you start, by the time they get through that argument, they're saying there's nothing here. You're sort of like just discouraging them from going forward. So you always want to come out of there with something which is just like a nice quick kapow, like right in the noggin. It makes the judge like, whoa, huh. Now, this is probably not an actual judge as we're looking at this. It's usually appointed officials who may not have any experience as a judge, but in this particular setting, they're serving as the arbiter in deciding the level of legitimacy of these complaints. So they are sitting as a judge. You try and convince them that you're right. You don't want to lull them to sleep where they basically think, this guy's kind of a crackpot. And he thinks he understands what he's talking about. It's not really a real argument. Because then by the time they get to your next argument, they're already disenchanted with where you're coming from, because they know you're just sort of spitting anything at the wall. And they're surprised that, is this the best you got? Really? This is the best you got? Okay. So, does Georgia have the recall mechanism to remove the DA? I don't know. It needs to pull everyone. I don't know that would win if you tried to recall. Maybe it would. Maybe it would. Who knows? I don't know if that would win. All right. Anyhow, but let's go forward here. Willis hired special prosecutor Wade for the election case. The case was based on RICO charges on a former president, many of his associates, in a case of national and world significance. For the election case, Wade did not possess the requisite experience for which he was hired. Okay. The other two contract attorneys had such RICO experience. The crimes being prosecuted are complex, multi-defendant RICO felonies, and Mr. Wade has never prosecuted a RICO case or prosecuted a felony. Never prosecuted a felony. This is like, to understand this, and this is such, to me, this is really a big deal. It's really like you're getting someone who, if you get a doctor and they're like basically, they're a year out of med school, and you're like, okay, so now we're going to want you to perform brain surgery. It's like, they spent their entire life, let's say, working on on kids' cuts and scratches, pediatric care. Even if they did that for 10 years and had a thriving practice, they don't know how to do brain surgery. It's a whole different thing. Even if they're great, they might be the best pediatrician on earth, and that's a very, very valuable thing and a very necessary skill and ability. And they're a doctor, but that's not at all the same type of practice. You can't appreciate the nuances of all the different things you need to know. If you're of any sort of specialty in anything, I'm sure you can think of easy analogies where you can realize that just because you have a lot of experience in an industry doesn't mean that when you have no experience or no pragmatic experience in this type of thing, to give you the hardest part of that type of thing is it's mind-boggling. Like, why the heck would you pick this individual? Who would do that? Who would do that? He was a solicitor who prosecutes misdemeanors. A solicitor. It's like a clerk. It's basically like a clerk, a solicitor, and a municipal court judge, traffic court judge. That's what it is. A traffic court judge. Do you know what it takes to be a traffic court judge? I'm telling you right now, if you spent 2 days sitting in traffic court, you're probably well equipped to be a traffic court judge. It's nothing. It's nothing. And it's zero benefit as far as training you to figure out how to handle prosecution of complex RICO case against the President of the United States and the most famous person on the planet. It's like, wow. And just to point this out to you, okay? If you had a lifetime of experience in prosecuting RICO, that probably would not fully prepare you for all the wrinkles of going for a RICO charge against a former president, because the former president has all sorts of different defenses available to him legal theories, legal and perspectives and laws which even the Supreme Court hasn't sorted through, and you're sitting here a freaking traffic court judge trying to prove your case. I mean, this sounds like it sounds like a joke. It sounds like a joke. Who are these? What are you thinking? What are you thinking? And that is the silver lining here. Because I got to tell you something, the idea of watching whoever's, I know he's been replaced now, he's out. Even watching Anna Cross, if they ever let her pick up the mic again, I'm not sure they will, or Adam Abadi, this whole but Anna, we don't think that there's be any cases where unless you get a conflict, they're just ridiculous arguments that the judge is sitting there swatting away. Look, I understand that you don't have any confidence in this judge, and he earned your distaste and distrust. He worked hard to obtain your distaste and distrust. Bottom line is, he's not going to be walking on a political limb and making determinations here. And most of the decisions he made throughout this evidentiary hearing, as far as how the hearing should be conducted, there was logic there. So I wouldn't come to a conclusion that he's in the tank for the Democrats or in the tank to go after Trump. The conclusion I drew from this is that he just doesn't have, that he has little boy nuts instead of grown man nuts, which is annoying and frustrating and aggravating and kind of depressing. But that's different from being twisted like Judge Engoron. That's my point. What we saw from Judge McAfee is nothing like Judge Engoron or Judge Lewis. Judge Engoron is the one who issued the decision against him in the civil fraud case in New York, or Judge Lewis from the Southern District in New York, who was basically sitting there on the scales of justice in favor of E. Jean Carroll and her claims against Trump, making crazy decision after crazy decision and shutting Trump up over and over again in situations that made you wonder if New York all of a sudden was, I don't know, had relocated to Guatemala. But we didn't see that from McAfee. Just because he wimped out in his decision doesn't mean that he's going to be making crazy decisions left and right here. He just didn't have the cojones to say, Fani, go home. So, as the complaint continues, he did not have the skill and experience requisite to perform the complex multi-defendant felony RICO case given the appointment guidelines. And Mr. Wade's current experience, he was not qualified to serve as a special prosecutor in this case. The defendants note that if he were appointed commensurate with his experience, he should receive only $140 per hour, not the $250 per hour he was receiving. This would constitute a violation of Rule 1.53. This argument is never going to hold water. It's not going to hold water. Fees that should be charged and paying an extra $110 an hour, when you have to understand that lawyer fees in general, it's basically as subjective as art. It's really as subjective as art. If I asked you what my hourly rate as a litigator should be, I can promise you that in the chat that there will be some people who would put a number that will be a third the price that other people would put. And none of you might be in the same ballpark as I would be. My point is, it's so subjective. And who's to say that this one's right and this one's wrong? It's so subjective. It's very, very subjective. So, and it can vary by hundreds of dollars per hour. So that's why I'm saying it's not something that you can actually say. So when you say, oh, he was only supposed to get $140 an hour, not $250, no one's paying attention to that argument. That argument's not going anywhere. It's just not. That's just the reality. Well, let's hear his argument in favor and support of this. On the stand, District Attorney lawyers questioned former Governor Roy Barnes, who now is in private practice. Barnes has the experience necessary. He's prosecuted felonies. As stated, so have the other two special prosecutors Willis hired. Were there no other attorneys licensed to practice in Georgia who didn't have the requisite experience or reputation? Of course there were. There are hundreds or thousands. Why didn't DA Willis choose among them? And yet, you know what? She could have had an open casting call, in theory, to play special prosecutor. It doesn't seem as if she did that. I know she tried saying, oh, we spoke to Roy Barnes and tried getting him to it. So that's it? You don't get Roy Barnes, so now you're down to Willis? Really? Really? That's it? It's like, well, what are we going to do? Barnes wasn't available. I guess we're stuck with Wade. What? Why wouldn't you even make Cross the lead? Why would you do that? If she interviewed several dozen and they didn't accept the position, an observer could understand her looking for a novel approach with the taxpayers' money. There was no need to, as stated, use the use of the taxpayer money to pay someone who doesn't have the experience or reputation to litigate RICO and felony cases, especially for former president high visibility associates, is alleged to violate Rule 1.57. Close up. Mm-hmm. Well, this comes back to a lawyer should not make an agreement or charge for collect an unreasonable fee or collect an unreasonable fee or an unreasonable amount for expenses. Number 7 is for the experience, reputation, ability of a lawyer or lawyers performing the services. I don't think it's meant to apply in this type of circumstance. That's the problem. I don't think 1.57 is going to work here. All right. Let me peek on you guys. Make sure you're all okay. Are you all okay? Any of you confused? We're all okay. Let me check in on my diggers. Little Miss is asking me what happened to the whole tomorrow night. I'll go through the whole Fani thing. Hey, if the East Tongue collapses, it's not Digger 44, so liability wise. It's a fair question. It's a fair question. I thought about going through it. Maybe I'll go through it tomorrow. Maybe I'll go through the parts I didn't get to cover. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Probably if I do it tomorrow, it'll be like during the day. But I'm thinking about covering tomorrow the Supreme Court hearing. I want to check this out because I remember there's. Trying to figure out what I'm going to do tomorrow. There's this case which is going on tomorrow. Murphy versus Missouri. Question presented in that case is the government Respectfully suggest the following question presented: whether respondents have Article 3 standing, whether the government's challenge conduct transform private social media companies' content moderation decisions into state action and violate respondents' First Amendment rights, and whether the terms and breadth of the preliminary injunction are proper. The application for stay presented to Justice Alito and by him referred to the court is granted. Preliminary injunction issued on July 4, 2023 by the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Louisiana are modified by the United States Court of Appeals, Fifth Circuit. Stayed. The application for stay is also treated as petition. So this is a case which is from Missouri and I don't know why it's called Murphy v. Missouri. That's what I'm very confused about. Why it got changed on the name there. But I believe that's the case that I've been covering there in Missouri v. Biden, which somehow was recaptioned when they went up for appeal. It sometimes happens. But so I'm likely going to be covering that tomorrow morning. What time is that for? What's that for? Set for 10 a.m. tomorrow. So I'm probably going to be covering that tomorrow. I'm not sure if I'll be covering that here where you're watching me. I might be covering it on playback. Probably on playback. I'm probably going to be covering that on playback. But you'll find that. You'll find that out tomorrow at goodlogic.locals.com. That's goodlogic.locals.com. Probably going to be covering those oral arguments on playback. Seems very likely. Maybe tomorrow evening I'll get into covering the rest of the Fani Willis thing. But I do want to put this to bed already at some point. Gotta put this kid. I gotta move past Fani. It's like every time I try and get around this Fani, try to get past this Fani, it's just like slowly marching right in my face. And it's just like I can't get around it. It's like I'm trying to go left, then I try going right. I try getting around this Fani. I keep trying to get around this Fani, and the struggle is real. The struggle is real. All right. Moving forward here. So he's also asking, tomorrow, that would be at 10 a.m. tomorrow. 10 a.m. tomorrow on playback is when I plan on covering the Supreme Court oral arguments as to whether or not the social media companies became a state actor with the way that they were governing, with the way they were handling First Amendment issues. To me, that's a very fascinating thing because that could actually have very significant impact on how social media companies are compelled to act with respect to taking their hands off of the scales and trying to punish people who are presenting conservative viewpoints. The district court found that there was the worst abuses in American history by the Biden administration, specifically in their efforts to silence conservative speech, and that this was so egregious and so terrible. And Supreme Court weighing in, hearing oral argument as to whether or not they became a state actor. I'd be very interested to hear those oral arguments tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to that. Even if we never get the complete answers one way or another. So the other questions were, was Mr. Wade hired because of some unforeseen experience to prosecute felonies that escaped the public record, or merely because he was D.A. Willis's paramour? Paramour. Were there not any attorneys arrayed in the district attorney's office, such as Mr. Adam Abadi, who were qualified to lead the prosecution? Why the hell is Wade more equipped to do this than Adam Abadi? I mean, Adam Abadi looked like he was out of his depth, but why is he worse at this? He at least has some experience in prosecuting felonies. Why did the more experienced contract attorneys get paid much less in total billing and at least one rate-wise than Mr. Wade? These are all reasonable questions. Even if we never get the complete answers, one way or another, we believe it's an appearance of conflict in the public eye. Let's move on to the question of fees. Wade billed Fulton County on November 5th, 2021 for 24 hours of work in a day, totaling $6,000. Any manager would question an invoice containing those hours. Either it was padding the bill, fraudulent, his work after so many hours would be expected to be subpar from exhaustion, his record keeping was deficient, or some other explanation that escapes us. At best, that billing is highly improbable. He had an excuse that he billed for multiple days, and November 5th was the final day. However, he had a bill for November 3rd, already for a substantial time. Also, on other occasions, Mr. Wade listed date spans when he billed. He did not for November 5th. Other times he said for 3 days, here's 24 hours. This time he said in 1 day, here in 24 hours. It was very, very curious billing. I heard another attorney who was talking about this, who was basically talking about, like, is it possible to get 24 hours in a day? Is it possible to get for an attorney to bill 24 hours a day? And he said something that I actually found very curious. I don't really understand what he was saying. I thought about reaching out to him, but I was like, I don't understand that. Look, maybe things are different in his state of practice than in mine. It's a very interesting ethical and philosophical question. I want to ask you this question. Just consider this, okay? He was talking about, he said, an attorney's hour is not like your hour. And here's why. Sometimes an attorney's hour can be a lot less than your hour, and sometimes it can be a lot more than your hour. I'm not talking about how much the attorney, he or she, is charging for that hour, but the length of time that is an hour is not really time commensurate with what we see on a clock. This is what this attorney was saying. And I agreed with what that attorney is saying, that frequently an attorney could go to work, go in at 8 o'clock in the morning, leave at 8 o'clock at night, see 12 hours that's in their day, and then look up at the clock and look at their billable total collected, and it's 5 hours. And they know they were working the entire time. But just as far as finding ways to attach and attribute that this time is for this and for that, that their hours just don't seem to add up to the time that they spent working that day. But he said sometimes it works in the opposite direction. And this is the part that I did not understand. And I think I understood what he was trying to say. I just didn't understand. I still didn't understand. What he was talking about was, he said, okay, let's say you're drafting a complaint. Okay? Someone comes in, they hire you, they retain you, and now you need to sit down and draft their complaint, file their complaint. Well, frequently, if you're an experienced attorney, there are other cases which you have similar facts and they're looking for similar relief to some case that you had last month, last year, 7 years ago. And you could sort of plug in a complaint that you had drafted last month, last year, 7 years ago. Maybe you used the same complaint 47 times already. Change the names, the dates, addresses, and voila, you have your complaint. Every single attorney does this. That is not simply something that is not unethical. I would argue that to not do that would be unethical. I would argue that attorneys are obliged to do that, because that is an opportunity for you to save time for your client. You can save time because rather than reinvent the wheel every single time, you're simply basically plugging in information that's already the boilerplate or a template for you to sort of throw in there. You know that there's certain elements you're going to have to lay out there. You might have to tweak certain things with respect to it. If you have a trip and fall place, they're going to have set up there a template for this is how we file a complaint for someone who tripped and fell. You change the location, you change the address, you change the names of the defendants and the plaintiff and the dates. Maybe you change some of the injuries, but there's a lot of overlap there as far as from one case to the next that's going to apply in every case. So obviously you don't want, as your client, for them to be billing you that they're starting all over. Why the hell would anyone want that? That seems stupid. It would be stupid. So what he was saying was that if an attorney uses a template, it might literally take them only 20 minutes of time, but they can bill for an hour of time. Even if it takes them 20 minutes to change that template, that they're allowed to bill for an hour of time, and that's part of the cost because you're benefiting from the fact that they have this template there. So they're sort of enabling you're sort of paying for a full hour because that's just part of their experience that they have in being able and having created a library of different creations that they have from their past, different works that they have from their past, whether it's in the pleading stage, it could be in discovery stage, it could be at any stage, and that's you're benefiting from that library. But there's an expectation that even if it takes them only 20 minutes to tweak that prior complaint, that they're allowed to charge you for a full hour. This is what I heard him say, at least as far as I understood it. I don't understand that at all. I don't understand that at all. And I can understand that you're going to pay him more because of his experience. I don't understand that. I was like, what? You can't just, so why stop at an hour? You can charge them for 4 hours. Like, why an hour? I don't even understand that. That doesn't even make any sense. I don't understand that. I was very, very confused by all of this. I was like, I can't do that here. I would get, if I did that here, no. I might charge more for my 20 minutes than some other attorneys would charge for their hour. Okay. But I couldn't charge at my rate a full hour. That doesn't make, part of the reason I'm charging more money per hour is because I have more experience. And part of that experience is that I have a bigger library of stuff that I can pull in and then get work done faster than someone who's doing it for the first time. So yeah, there's sort of a give and take. Like you're getting a more experienced attorney. More experienced attorney should have a library of complaints. If you're an experienced litigator, of course you would have a library of complaints that there's probably going to be some overlap. There's going to be some relevance to some complaint that you file at some point in your career, if not many times in your career. There should be. I can't remember the last time I started from scratch on a complaint. Why would I ever do that? That would be retarded. That'd be so stupid. So even just for the formatting, even just the formatting alone, because it's supposed to be in a certain format, layout, and whatever, with the captions and stuff like that, of course you're going to have that's part of being an experienced litigator or having experience in that area of litigation, is that you should have that. That's part of why you're charging a higher hourly rate. I don't understand that now on top of that, you should be able to charge for just some random period excess amount of time beyond what you actually spent working on it. I don't understand that at all. I was like, what? How does that work? I don't understand that. Like, and how do you figure out what's the appropriate amount of time to just throw on the end there? So no, I don't understand. And look, it could very well vary from one jurisdiction to another. It's possible. I didn't understand that at all. Maybe some people understand it better than I do. I've never done that. I've never been like, oh yeah, sure. Look, I understand. It only took me. I only spent 45 minutes on doing this complaint. But come on, that's like 2.5 hours of work right there. No, I don't understand that. That's not 2.5 hours. Just because you got done faster, that's why you're getting paid more money per hour. To me, am I crazy? I'm like, am I a sucker? Am I stupid? Did I not go to the right big firms? And this is why I don't understand how billing works? I'm like, I don't know. I just sort of figured if I'm working for 45 minutes, that's what I put on my timesheet. Now I understand maybe you're working 10 to an hour, so you might round it up to 48 minutes. Okay. All right. Maybe some people work in quarter of an hour, so they get to that 46 minutes. They charge a full hour for the 46 minutes. I don't know how 20 minutes ever becomes an hour. To me, I was just like, I don't know what he's saying. This sounds so unethical. I was like, this sounds so unethical. This can't be. He doesn't mean what he's saying. I don't know if he realizes how this sounds. I don't know if he realizes this is just not. I don't know. This doesn't make no sense to me. I don't know. To me, I was just like, I don't know if he knows. I was like, I don't know if he realizes how bad this sounds. To me, this sounds like what? What? So what if you have like a cache, a library full of stuff? You can't just pretend that you worked 3 times as long as you did just because you have a library and it got done faster for you. It's like, I don't understand that. I don't know what's happening here. I don't know anything that's happening. Drop Accuracy says, came late, so sorry if you covered this. With finding significant appearance of impropriety, are Fulton County taxpayers allowed restitution? No, of course they're not allowed restitution. Please. Please, restitution. Yeah, that's happening. That's totally going to happen. Totally going to happen. 6 minutes equals a tenth of an hour. And 6 minutes, one client equals 1. But say going through email, 3 minutes client, 3 minutes client B, now you have 2. That's what I've been thinking since that bill came out. That is the way you can do it. That's true. That is true. So what Debbie's trying to explain here is this. If I go through 10 emails in 15 minutes and it's for 10 different clients and I spend a minute on each one of them, a lot of lawyers will be like, well, I charge a minimum of a tenth of an hour. So it's 15. So in 15 minutes, I just racked up 90 minutes worth of billing because I got 15 times 10, 15 tenths of an hour. So I just got an hour and a half worth of billing, and it took me 15 minutes. Right? I'm going to spend a minute on each one, so I charge each one for a tenth of an hour. So that's how lawyers can really legally and what's considered ethically okay rip someone off. Okay? So imagine your client, let's say you charge $600 an hour. So a tenth of an hour is $100. So in 15 minutes, if you manage to knock off a quick response, a quick 30-second response to someone, and you do that for 15 people for 15 people in 10 minutes, which could be done. You charge each of those 10 people each of those 15 people a tenth of an hour. So that ends up being 15 times tenth of an hour is 1.5 hours. So you just work for 15 minutes and you can rack up $900 worth of billing, charging each of them $60. So each one pays $60, but you end up making $900 because you're charging it to 15 people. That's considered a ethically legal way to rack up time. That's why there's an old joke that this lawyer, like, he dies and he goes up to him. He's like, I don't understand. I was a really good person. Why, why is it that like you only gave me 34 years? They're looking at me like 34. My God, we looked at your billing. We thought you were 108. So that's how you do it. That's how you do it legally and like ethically. It's sort of like nickel and diming every one of your clients ultimately that way. I was the fool who promised my clients I would do it the opposite way. Where I rounded down and I didn't charge them anything until I crossed the 6-minute threshold. But that's because I was an idiot. Not to each person, but money should go to the city. It's not happening. It's not happening. Please. 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 God, what are you thinking? What are you thinking, Barracuda? I don't even know where you're living. Yeah, they're totally giving back their money. No one's even going to think such a thing to ask them to give back the money. Totally give back the money. Oh yeah, sure, it's coming. It's coming. Unlike all other county contract attorneys in the election case, Wade used block billing. That is where an entire day or days were collapsed into one line item in the bill. Other attorneys billed using itemized billing, broken down into detailed 10 or 15-minute intervals. The latter is common practice. Mr. Wade's billing, especially to a government body, is not. Wade did not explicitly say what the terms were regarding. Other attorneys detailed the exact motion or meeting subject involved. Wade did not. Again, Wade's lack of detailed explanation is not normal for billing to government bodies. Wade's superior, T.A. Willis, should have questioned the invoice with the November 5th billing and conducted an audit of his other expenses. She's the gatekeeper of the people's money in this case, and she simply let this and other bills be processed and paid without question. There was no annotation or other explanation by her in the record, so his total bill was announced to be $700,000, and with recent McAfee court appearances and time on the clock, it's expected to now be much more. Willis should have looked at the reasonableness of his fees and asked for an itemized bill and supporting documentation as is customary. That I'll agree with him about. I just don't think that fees is the proper way to go after it. I don't think that fees is the proper violation. There are other violations for this conduct, not this. Additionally, as stated before, he's not experienced in this type of case, since fees should reflect that. The responsibility on behalf of the public lies with D.A. Willis should have sought out an explanation, detailed supporting documentation, a full audit. She did not, and therefore, in our opinion, has squandered the money of her client, the people. Again, I don't think that in this context she's considered the client of that she's the, that the people are her clients. That's the problem. Use Steiner math and use it the best way. I don't know Steiner math. As the attorney of record for the non-call, can you please obtain a TRO against Lizzo? She keeps queefing in my tunnel, and it's like, Meowschwitz? Really? Really? Meowschwitz? That sounds brutal. Oh my gosh, that sounds really brutal. See, but imagine if you had that brainchild, you'd be racking it up. I had the brainchild. I basically, part of my selling point was, I basically was like, I'm going to charge you a really high rate, but I'm always rounding down. You know that anytime you're paying for anything on my bill, you're never going to sit there saying like, oh, that's going to be crazy. That's crazy high. I'd much rather not have to churn out bills. And I'd be like, so I'm like, look, I'm charging you a high rate for a solo attorney, but my bills, you're never going to question. You're never going to sit there saying like, give me condemn on this or whatever. I'm going to walk you through it. You're going to understand every bill there. And anytime you need me, day or night, you get on the phone with me and stay with me on the phone with me for less than 6 minutes, and I will talk to you about your case. And I'll tell you, get off before 6 minutes, because that's when the bill's going to hit you. And that's how I prefer to run my practice. That's how I personally prefer to run my practice. My wife probably did not like me running practice that way, because I would have racked up a lot more in bills if I did it the way most attorneys did it. So, all right, where are we at here? Oh, I got this one right. Why is it important? It's because itemized billing and subsequent approval is the standard accountability of taxpayer money. Without detailed billing and precise explanations, accountability is lost, especially if Mr. Wade and D.A. Willis were in an improper relationship. The accountability would quash some questions about what was being done with people's money, especially relevant since some of the money obtained in this way made its way back to D.A. Willis personally. This is alleged to violate Rule 1.5, 1, and 3. Lizzo playing the Australian trumpet is horrifying. Yeah, I don't even know what the Australian trumpet is, but yeah, any air coming out of Lizzo's does not sound like something I want to know much about. I'm going to share something embarrassing. I know Lizzo is a celebrity. I literally have no idea what she's a celebrity for. I don't know if she's a musician. I don't know if she's some spokeswoman. I don't know if she made an appearance on America's Got Talent or whatever. I literally have no idea anything about Lizzo other than the fact that she's a ginormous woman. That's all I know about her. And I'm not guessing that she's famous for being heavy, and that I would assume the left basically has trumpeted her as being some bastion of beauty, because that's just what they do. It's almost like we're going to piss you off by telling you how pretty she is. That's essentially what I so I'm assuming. But I'm pleased to tell you I know nothing about Lizzo. Please don't change that. Other than I've seen pictures. Rule 3.3, candor toward the tribunal. Okay, now this is real meat. This is where you get to some of the meat. I know there's a lot of meat on this bone here. Okay, you want to talk Lizzo, there's a lot of meat on this bone here. Candor toward the tribunal. All right. This rule prevents a lawyer from lying or hiding information from a court. A lawyer shall not knowingly make a false statement of material fact or law to a tribunal. There we go. Now I see where you're going here now. Fail to disclose a material fact to a tribunal when disclosure is necessary to avoid assisting a criminal or fraudulent act by the client. Failed to disclose to the tribunal legal authority to the controlling jurisdiction known to the lawyer to be directly adverse to the position of the client and disclosed by opposing counsel, or offer evidence that the lawyer knows to be false. If a lawyer has offered material evidence that comes to know of its falsity, the lawyer shall take reasonable remedial measures. You can go after Adam Abadi for this too. You can go after Anna Cross for this too. The maximum penalty for a violation of this rule is disbarment. You can go after Adam Body, Adam Cross, and Anna Cross for this. That you put these people on the stand. Totally could. Or that you allowed her to go up there and knew that she was, and representing her and trying to stay on the case when you knew that she was basically suborning perjury. You can go after the entire DA's office. It doesn't have to be limited to Fani Willis. In our opinion, Fani Willis made a false statement under oath violating Rule 3.3a. The following is a prima facie argument as to why. All right, let's hear your argument. Break it down for us. Do it. Fani Willis supplied a brief to the McAfee court and subsequently testified on February 15, 2024 that her inappropriate relationship with Nathan Wade started in 2022 after she hired him as a special prosecutor. Wade provided a similar story, but both those statements were self-serving. She was impeached by who? Robin Bryant. Oh, Robin Bryant Yeardy, a longtime friend of hers. Well, she was impeached before. I mean, Yeardy said that before she got on the stand. Who gave clear testimony that the relationship began in 2019. Yeardy didn't equivocate, saying she had no doubt of the 2019 timeline. She witnessed them showing public displays of affection. The state did not materially challenge her testimony, unlike Willis and Wade, whose employment and reputation were at risk. Yeardy had no reason to lie. She really didn't have any reason to lie. They would say that she was an angry ex-employee, but extremely reluctant to testify and wasn't impeached by the counsel for the state. Then, around February 23rd, 2024, Charles Middlestat of the defense team filed a brief showing cell phone tower data, phone call metadata, and text metadata. He used the online software CellHawk in his work. CellHawk is known as the premier tool for this type of work and is praised by other prosecutors for catching criminals. CellHawk tool from its website, it has quotes like, "CellHawk is an instrumental part of our daily casework. Many felony cases have been solved and concluded in a conviction beyond reasonable doubt, obviously, because of this outstanding user-friendly application. Thank you, CellHawk, for the justice you serve for the law enforcement community." And this, after comparing and testing several solutions, CellHawk was the obvious choice. I can't imagine life without it. Working in a prosecutor's office allowed me to put other half of CellHawk to the test. It has not disappointed. The San Francisco, California District Office said, "Your software is a must-have for our DA's office." So everyone's relying, all those different prosecutors are all happy to rely on CellHawk. By the way, one of the things I'm just going to point out, one of the things the judge never addressed when he talked about the whole CellHawk and phone record, completely ignored the records indicating that the guy was that Nathan Wade spent the full night twice in 2021 before he had a relationship with Willis. Completely ignored it. Just said, I don't know what to take from that. What crap. You know what to take from that. You take from what everyone else on the planet took from it. To me, that's why I said that Judge McAfee's decision itself is mendacity. Because he's lying when he says he doesn't know what to take from it. He knows what to take from it the same way anyone else does. He's very smart. He's a very smart man. And then pretend he doesn't know what to take from it is crap. Because every other person knew what to take from it. Sellout data showed intense interaction between Willis and Mr. Wade well before they claimed their affair had begun. Willis argued the cell phone tower data is imprecise, but let's unpack that. First, in urban areas, there are many more cell phone towers than rural ones, stating that it could be 9 miles between the true location of a cell phone and a tower may be true in Hahira, Georgia, but in dense Hapeville, the number of cell phone towers is much denser. Phone doesn't ping on a tower 9 miles away when there are many others nearby. The cell phone tower data is much more reliable in a highly populated city. This is supported by United States v. Medley on May 8, 2018, which concluded that this technology is well understood, and while a phone can't be placed precisely at a specific spot, it can be placed within the cell phone tower area. We also note that with a high density of cell phone towers, this area becomes much more localized. What exactly does cell phone tower data show? Middlestat's data show that Mr. Wade was at, or to be fair, very near to Willis's home many more times than the under 10 they testified to under oath. And that's flat out lie when they said, maybe 10. And it was 30. Additionally, and damning, on 2 of those occasions, he was there for most of the night. Young people call these events booty calls. God. This is the world in 2024. Oh, my God. Society has reached a nadir. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. We have bar complaints against district attorneys for lying about booty calls. This is where we're at. That the district attorney failed to own up to the booty call. See, I knew this would cheer me up. I knew it. I knew it would. I was like, you know what? It might take me a while to get to the part that's going to make me laugh. But I'll get there. Oh my God. This society is such a joke. I should have called it a Fani call. That would have been even better. It's not a butt dial. Not a butt dial when you're pinging at her house. Trust me, he was pinging there for hours. It's really a compliment. One night in September 2021, he arrived at 10:45 p.m., left at 3:30 a.m., returned to his home where he lived with his wife. Wade then texted DA Willis at 4:20 a.m. Mr. Adam Abadi, Fulton County Deputy District Attorney, tried to impeach the cell phone tower data partially by saying there was no expert used by the defense. He later referred to the defense's expert, thus contradicting himself, tacitly admitting that the defense did indeed have an expert. In oral arguments, Abadi did not orally present the name of an expert to refute the defense. No one's saying, oh, they're all wrong. That's true. That's true. Willis cannot get away with arguing this point in the crowded metro Atlanta area. So any case she's prosecuted using cell phone data can be reversed on appeal using her arguments. and this data cannot be used in the future. And if this does set a precedent, defendants in the January 6, 2021 riot should be released because the Department of Justice used such data in their prosecution. We can't have two standards of justice. We can't have one standard used by prosecutors against the public and another applies only to themselves. Here, 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 here. The line must be drawn here. Here, here. The state shows times that Mr. Wade was in the hateful area that when DA Willis wasn't there. However, that doesn't explain away the sequence of his late night visits there. And then an immediate late nights, DA Willis once again found himself in the area of his own home. The actions are alleged to be violations of Rule 1.5. In addition to the cell phone tower information, there's an undisputed number of phone calls and texts between Willis and Wade before he's appointed as special prosecutor. Records show in the first 11 months of 2021, Willis and Wade exchanged more than 2,000 phone calls and an astounding 9,800 text messages. I thought it was 12,000. To put things into perspective, over those 333 days, that's an average of more than 6 calls a day and over 29 texts every day. People sometimes need to call or text frequently, but again, note, this was the daily average. Note that they wouldn't have to text or call when traveling together. That's a good point. That's a good point. Many in the public are shocked because most close couples don't communicate this much. There's your odor mendacity right there. I don't know what you got here. What's that there? If, as Willis would have us believe, this was just friends communicating, we're just friends. We're just friends. What are you? We're just friends. Or asking for work advice, she could have easily released the text to show that. Yep. Without such evidence and other testimony exhibits showing the affair that predates the working relationship at the district attorney's office, we believe it's clear and convincing that the affair predated November 2021. I would respectfully submit that if we were talking about any other persons other than the district attorney, the judge would have concluded the same. Why does a personal relationship need to be brought up by the judicial system? In normal cases, it wouldn't. It should remain private. In so many cases, it would be unremarkable if she were dating a non-lawyer outside her office. There'd be no need to pry into the relationship. If she were dating an attorney outside her office, that would be fine. Except that when they're adversaries, the facts need to be disclosed. If she was an assistant district attorney and dating another assistant district attorney, that'd also be fine. But office rules would probably dictate that she notify her superior. None of the above happened in this case. In this case, according to defense attorneys, the following events occurred. Willis was in charge, and she hired a boyfriend to work directly for her as her subordinate. Then she put him in a senior but still subordinate position on a sole source contract only overseen by her. He only had prosecuted misdemeanors, no RICO cases, but the case for which he was hired expressly involved RICO and felonies. Taxpayers, through her, paid him hundreds of thousands of dollars. His invoices even contain an item saying he worked 24 hours in a single day. She required more detail, but just paid him. She required no more detail, but just paid him. The money then was used for both of them on trips, other outings, restaurants. Except for $400, there's no record of her paying him back, nor did she file an ethics record for each of the gifts, advance loans. Even if the money was eventually paid back, they were still given to her at the time. Each record needs to be recorded by law, and at a minimum, each reimbursement needs to be codified. I think he means to be memorialized, but none of that was done. Making a mockery of ethics rules for gifts, it appears very likely to us that financial misconduct happened. See, this is strong. This is where you open with. Start here. Start here. This is where you should be starting. A RICO case, as D.A. Willis well knows, takes a long time. She was credited with long RICO cases when she prosecuted several Atlanta teachers over the testing scandals, so she knows how long they can be. A RICO case means a lot of money spent on attorneys, especially when they aren't employees on fixed salaries, but consultants who can bill up to 24 hours a day, sometimes 26 hours a day. There was not one but two grand juries, and only then did charges appear. The sequence of special grand jury followed by a regular grand jury hadn't been done in Georgia in the past, and it took a very long time to get to trial. Very long time to get there. Thus, we believe the initial prolonged grand juries was to be a method used to enrich her boyfriend and herself. That's an interesting thought. You didn't really hear the defense make that claim very much. If the defense attorneys are correct, it is to D.A. Willis's benefit to make this a long case. The longer Wade works for her, the more she can feast off the fruits of the taxpayer through him. As it stands, the investigation began soon after she took office, hired Wade in November 2021. Money started rolling in for vacations and meals. Defense attorney Craig Gillen calls it fraud on this court. As the Georgia Senate Special Committee on Investigations hearing on March 6, 2024, Senate Democratic Whip Harold Jones quizzed Miss Merchant about why D.A. Willis, who earns about $200,000 a year, would want to risk her job rotation for a relatively modest sum of $17,000. That's a good question. Only Willis can answer this question. Should she not adequately show that Wade was reimbursed? Okay, I just want to point out, when they ask what's the you might be asking what's $17,000. Ashley Merchant, Trump co-defendant Michael Roman's attorney. So Trump has co-defendant Michael Roman. His attorney is that blonde woman, Ashley Merchant. She's the one who brought the initial motion. When she came in front of the Senate, she said that she documented $17,000, but that was very, 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 very much rounding down, meaning she didn't count the add-ups of Ubers and smaller meals and stuff like that. That was really just flights and cruises. There almost certainly was probably close to like $50,000. Also, you don't know when you're hiring him how long you're going to be going out with him. Could be something you'll be living off of this. You'll be living off his back for the next several years, which could be hundreds of thousands. Just because we only know for certain of 17,000 doesn't mean that she didn't plan on using hundreds of thousands that he would rake in. Only one's going to answer this question. Should she not adequately show that Wade was reimbursed? Others with money, resources, power, and fame risked everything for paltry gains. Some of the reasons for the others were lack of impulse control, thrill of breaking the rules, trying to get a financial mismanagement, addiction. See, you don't have to go through this. You have to go through all this. Mental health issues, peer influence, sense of entitlement. There are well-known cases of wealthy people committing or being alleged to have committed active petty financial crime. Yeah, I don't care when she starts going through all these different folks here. This is like kind of crazy. I don't need to read through the list of different people who have mental health issues. This is what makes me think a lawyer did not help him, because this is just, they don't want to sit here reading about Leona Helmsley and Amanda Bynes shoplifting. Okay, this is just this is becoming a little untethered from where we started here. On the stand during the elections case, Willis repeatedly failed to answer direct questions from the defense. She supplied lengthy non-answers to obfuscate and deflect and get her point across that wasn't an answer to the questions asked. McAfee had to admonish her several times to get her to answer the question. This display in full view of the watching public made many people believe she was hiding something. As an officer of the court, she had a duty to answer the questions asked and would not tolerate such misuse by those she questioned in her role as prosecutor. Thus, the conduct on the stand is alleged to be a violation of Rule 3.4b, subsection 4. Okay, I'm feeling that. Feeling that a little more. What's this? That's right there. Second, we got a little confused here. Fani, don't ping Wade. Don't ping. Don't ping Wade. I'm gonna ping. The judge got a call about the feds, hence a split on Wenny and Fade. Judge got a call above the feds. I don't know. Isn't 17K? It's the embezzlement with benefits. When you're gonna embezzle, you always want to embezzle with benefits, I guess. So one second, we got this. This. I'm very confused. I'm trying to. All right, fairness to opposing counsel. Isn't it enough that she hired Wade for hanky-panky benefits? I don't think you can establish that that's why. She was already having hanky-panky benefits. It's not like she had to pay him. There's no evidence she had to pay for the encounters. Fairness to opposing party and counsel. This rule deals with fairness to various parties. A lawyer shall not falsify evidence. Counsel or assist a witness to testify falsely. Request a person other than the client to refrain from voluntarily giving relevant information to another party. Use methods of obtaining evidence that violate legal rights of opposing party. Present, participate, or present and threaten to present criminal charges solely to obtain an advantage in a civil matter. The maximum penalty is disbarment. It is established that Mr. Wade paid over $9,200 in benefits for both Mr. Wade and D.A. Willis throughout the relationship. They do not deny this. Willis said she paid cash for many things, and generally their accounts were in balance. However, except for a single $400 cash payment to the trip to Napa Valley, California. No evidence that D.A. Willis ever reimbursed Wade any of the expenses Willis could have shown. Receipts from Publix showing that she asked for cash back on groceries. As she stated that Publix cashback was one means whereby she received cash. She also could have shown large cash withdrawals from her bank after being paid her salary. She did neither. Seems quite probable to us that Mr. Wade's one-way payments were never repaid. That reinforces, in our view, that the story of using cash with no supporting documentation was a story concocted to conceal a financial benefit to D.A. Willis from Fulton County and Georgian taxpayers. So to me, this is really the main thing, that getting into their lies that they told on the stand is, to me, like the big deal here. State has argued in court that only times in Georgia history where fees caused conflict of interest was when there was contingency fees involved. So now all this stuff about conflict of interest, when the judge has made a determination as a finding that there's no conflict of interest, I think you're going to lose here, because they're going to say, well, the judge has already made this call. There's no conflict of interest. And this was filed before the judge made his finding. I'm simply saying that all this part here, as far as conflict, is likely to fall on deaf ears now that the judge has issued a ruling. They partook in the money during the case. Didn't matter the outcome. The longer the case continued, the longer they could share the fruits of the outcome of the income. The conflict of interest happened and was ongoing well before, and the trial outcome will be known. This outcome is irrelevant to the scheme in the election case. So, if this evidence falsifying scheme is intended to protect the affair, the reason for hiring Wade and to conceal the flow of money, we believe that it constitutes a violation of Rule 3.4b1. If the State Bar concludes that Wade provided false testimony, then it stands to reason that she and or her team either counseled, assisted, or acquired, facilitating Mr. Wade to corroborate such false testimony. Thus, the testimony believed by the State Bar to be false is alleged to be a violation of Rule 3.4b2. These are legitimate complaints. This is legitimate. Obviously, if Wade's getting on the stand and lying, which the judge practically called him a liar, that's something that sounds like it's a violation, and she definitely is working in cahoots with him. That could be something that they could face discipline for. To me, that's a very significant thing. The state did its best to prevent Terrence Bradley from testifying. His plain texts to Miss Ashley Merchant were definitive that there was an affair long before he started his position as special prosecutor. It really was not definitive. That's not accurate. That was what was frustrating. In text, at least from the stand, he wasn't definitive. In text, Bradley was clear when asked if fair start for 2021. He said, absolutely, that's true. Highly relevant information should have been heard. It was the genesis of Ms. Merchant's cause for calling the hearing. The state did its best to avoid this testimony because it knew that the text, if believed, showed an improper relationship before when the two lovers said they had initiated the affair. They would impeach a major part of the case. By extension, none of the testimony from Willis or Wade would be credible. Bradley developed a case of amnesia on the stand, repeatedly saying, I don't recall. Similar statements from the witness stand. However, he wrote the text only about a month or two earlier and was definitive in them. What then do we believe? Could be a wash if not for the proposed testimony from the Cindy Lee Yeager, co-deputy assistant attorney of Cobb County. She corroborates the version of Mr. Bradley's account in his texts. Ms. Yeager had many conversations with Mr. Bradley. She said that Mr. Bradley stated to her that the Willis-Wade affair started in 2019, soon after they met, continued as D.A. Willis ran for office, and that most strikingly, Bradley, personal knowledge relationship. Again, this is all hearsay, though. Anything Yeager says about it is all hearsay. She's just talking about what this guy said to her. He's not party to it. And after Yeager's possible testimony, another lawyer, Manny Aurora, former adjunct professor of Georgia State School of Law, come forward to refute Bradley's courtroom testimony in a motion by co-defendant Kathy Latham. Between September through October 2023, Aurora had several conversations with attorney Terrence Bradley regarding the relationship between District Attorney Willis and Nathan Wade, and that Aurora stated Wade had definitely begun a romantic relationship with Miss Willis during the time that Miss Willis was running for District Attorney in 2019 through 2020. According to one report, Wade apparently even had a garage door opener for the apartment where he and Willis would meet for their secret trysts, Bradley told Aurora. We now have Miss Yeager's evidence, Bradley text, Yeager's corroboration, Aurora corroboration, and supporting text quantities, call quantities, and cell phone tower data that demonstrate that the improper relationship started in 2019. That's a nice little summation there. Yeager's evidence, Bradley's texts, Yeager's corroboration, Aurora's corroboration, and cell phone tower data that demonstrate the improper relationship started in 2019. None of these people have anything to gain by offering this information. Only two people have everything to lose are disputing it. Thus, we believe that possible concealment constitutes a violation of Rule 3.4b1. I like the way he presented this. I like the way he did it in general. This is a very nice, strong way of laying out. Here are all the different things. Here's the whole kibosh here. If you look at its entirety, it makes no sense. I mean, this just seems completely. This is why you and I all feel it's corrupt, but it's nicely laid out. Did a pretty good job. I'm going to tip my cap. Fair enough. Fair enough. You cover the Missouri orals tomorrow, today, live. Yes, I will cover them at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning on playback. If you want the link, follow on Locals, goodlogic.locals.com. goodlogic.locals.com. You will get the link. I'll be watching it on playback tomorrow. goodlogic.locals.com. And that will be free, completely free. Everything about playback, free. No cost to you. Just free. Free. 100% free. The link will be free. Playback will be free. Zero cost to you. All you got to do, follow me for free at goodlogic.locals.com. And you will see I'll create a link after this show to live stream the SCOTUS oral arguments of Missouri v. Biden, which is actually called Murphy versus Missouri or whatever. But that's going to be tomorrow morning. The links I'll probably create the link tonight when I'm done here. Which I don't know if I'm going to make it through all 22 pages because it took me an hour and 45 minutes to get this far. Oh my God. It's a lot. It's a lot. While I'm talking about this sort of stuff, I should just throw out my cute little guy here because that's just adorable. How do you not subscribe when you see that? How do you not like and subscribe wherever you are? Hey, it's like he's even sticking a thumb out at you. Look at him go. Look at him go. Look at him go. I have to get to 94,000 tonight. That's really what I need to get to. I need to get to 94,000. Let me see where I'm at. What's my dashboard saying? 93,966. 93,966. 34 more people I need. 34 more people to cross that 94,000 threshold. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. I believe. All right. If Willis lied under oath, which is perjury, it's an example of prosecutorial forensic misconduct. This is defined as any activity by the prosecutor which tends to divert the jury from making a determination of guilt or innocence by weighing the legally admitted evidence in the manner prescribed by law. California Supreme Court had a warning. We don't talk about California Supreme Court here in 1889. That's okay. I'm not even reading that. The state also tried to prevent Wade and Bradley from testifying. Thus, the scheme is alleged to be a violation of Rule 33.4F. I don't think they're going to care about that either. The long drawn-out grand jury process and charging so many crimes served to cost the defendants a great deal of money in legal fees in the millions. Millions? I don't know about that. Same time, her boyfriend and she were I guess, yeah, probably. I mean, when you consider fees that paid judges and stuff, yeah, arguably, I guess. Okay. At the same time, her boyfriend and she were potentially profiting from delays. Many believe it was a case of overcharging. Part of the problem with the whole delays thing and the lengthy trial is McAfee pointed out, they wanted to rush to trial and the defendants try to slow it down. So if they're really here to milk the clock, why would they be trying to rush to trial? And that's a reasonable question. If that's the sole reason that they're doing this, I don't think it's the sole reason, but I think we can all recognize that the reason they're trying to rush to trial now is because they do want to go after Trump and convict him and hope to get a conviction before the election. So you can make the point that they milked the clock as much as they could, and they're like, "Oh, we gotta hurry up and get him convicted before an election." In our opinion, the only reason to stop the gravy train that helped fund vacations and meals was to set a trial date for maximum harm to one of the defendants. Oh, look at that! You see, he's thinking like I am. By scheduling directly in the middle of election season, her political star rises, and she may be credited with taking down a powerful person in an opposing party. Was this deliberate? We believe it was. That she's benefited first from excess taxpayer money in the initial drawn-out phase and then received a massive political bump by clever timing. Thus, the initial prolonged grand juries, followed a purposeful attempt to accelerate the trial in the middle of election season, is alleged to be a violation of Rule 3.4G. One of the most concerning incidents in this case is a long line of concerning incidents is when Willis used her position to threaten Wade's wife, Jocelyn Wade, during the divorce proceedings. Willis stated in a motion that Miss Wade is trying to embarrass and harass her, by extension, interfere and obstruct the conduct of the election. Since that time, Willis admitted in an improper relationship with Wade, so Miss Wade had every reason to determine how the marital money was being used before the divorce. This was not an unusual action by a divorcing couple, unusual action was done by Willis in using her position to threaten her paramour's estranged wife during a proceeding. Willis was using the full power of her office to threaten Miss Wade with criminal prosecution, with our belief that was to prevent Miss Wade from adequately fighting for her rights in court, correspondingly help her boyfriend in his case, and prevent herself from being an integral part of a now public divorce case. It's well said. It's well said. Seriously, Generala. Seriously. Just peek and make sure I haven't missed anything from y'all. Peeking on the ghetto. Ghetto's good. Peek over here. Oh, this is refreshing. It's not refreshing. Stupid locals making me crazy. Rule 3.5, impartiality and decorum in the tribunal. On February 15, 2024, Willis took this. This is really too small. Bigger. I think get bigger. God. Oh, there you go. That's much better. Good. All right. Rule 3.5, impartiality and decorum in the tribunal. On February 15, 2024, Fani Willis took the stand in Judge McAfee's courtroom at 5:22:58 of the judge's YouTube video. The result was a circus. Rather than recount each episode, we'll let the video speak for itself as it shows all the incidents. The world saw disrespect and disruptions that Willis faced on the stand. Following quotes from various news sources demonstrate the chaos in the courtroom. Oh, please tell me he quoted me. I'd be so thrilled if he did. Things quickly went off the rails. Willis didn't act much like a traditional witness and was more like a prosecutor. Why didn't you quote me? I was talking about how she looked like she was in the WWE. Here come Fani. Fani marching to the stand. There she go. Oh, she going to stand now. You better watch out. Are you ready to rumble? More like a prosecutor, arguing with the defense attorneys, raising objections, making legal arguments, and even having exchanges with the judge. She even raised her voice at one point. This led to a few rebukes from McAfee, who urged her and other attorneys in the courtroom to maintain professionalism and not talk over each other. In a nod to the famous courtroom scene of Hugo Maine, Willis had an outburst similar to Colonel Nathan R. Jessup. You think I'm on trial? Willis said in her sharpest pushback of the day. These people are on trial for trying to steal an election in 2020, she added, pointing toward the table of attorneys representing defendants in the criminal case. I'm not on trial, no matter how hard you try to put me on trial. You want me in that trial. You need me in that trial. And much, much more. She upbraided Ashley Merchant, one of the defense lawyers, questioning her, alleging that Miss Merchant court filings which accused Willis of having a disqualifying conflict of interest stemming from a romantic relationship with Nathan J. Wade, special prosecutor in the case, full of lies. At one point, a voice approached a yell, prompting McAfee, mom and judge, to call a 5-minute recess, an apparent effort to cool things down. One publication likened the trial to reality TV. The fun never sets in the Atlanta courtroom of Superior Court Judge McAfee. That is the red-hot scene of the adults-only reality TV hit called The Real Prosecutors of Fulton County. Oh, that's really good. That's really good. Oh, that's well said. That's really well said. I like that. Real Prosecutors of Fulton County. One more commentary on outburst to drive home the point of disruption. What do you got for us? What do you got for us? Defense attorneys clearly grew frustrated with district attorney's off-the-cuff prompting McAfee to warn her twice he would strike portions of testimony. She continued to stray far afield from the attorney's questions. There are many, many more articles on her behavior, but this sampling should suffice. Thus, the behavior in court is alleged to be a violation of 3.5D, lack of decorum. Yeah. 3.8. Special responsibilities as a prosecutor. This rule says prosecutor in criminal case shall, except for statements that are necessary to inform the public of the nature of extended prosecutor's action, that shall serve a legitimate law enforcement purpose, refrain from making extrajudicial comments that have substantial likelihood of heightening public condemnation of the accused. This is a good one to go after her for. This is a really, really good one to go after her for. This is a really, really good one to go after. This is the judge even said, this is crap what you've been doing. This is crap. This is a good one. This is where you should start, right here. Right here. Go get her. Go get her. Maximum penalty for violation of this rule is disbarment. This is what we all have been waiting for. Thank you. Thank you. Willis didn't just charge former President Trump and let chips fall where they may in the courtroom. For months, she was on many nationally seen TV shows, campaign events, national press. Some of these appearances could be argued that she just informed the public, as allowed under Rule 3.6 trial publicity like this one. And Atlanta 11. You don't talk about that. You don't have to give a cite to that. However, she didn't merely inform the public. She condemned the highest profile defendant in public, freely gave information on the authors of the Find Me the Votes during the case according to Rule 3.8G. Prosecutors should just discuss the facts of the case. Instead, she spent a lot of time with friendly authors to promote her case the way she wanted and it to be seen by the public, the future jury pool. The book's authors had unfettered access at a point where D.A. Willis was deciding who to indict. Authors treated her with kid gloves while lambasting the ex-president, and Willis was an intimate part of the book. This is another example of prosecutorial forensic misconduct. In our view, she's indirectly using her position to gain political advantage and helping to prosecute her case outside the courtroom to the detriment of the defense. Early in the case, Fulton County Superior Court Judge Robert C. McBurney disqualified Willis from prosecuting Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones. Willis took part in a fundraiser for Jones' opponent at the time. Democrat Charlie Bailey McBurney said that what D.A. Willis did was harmful to the integrity of investigation, writing, any decision the district attorney makes about Senator Jones in connection with the grand jury investigation is necessarily infected by it. He also said that it would demonstrate entirely reasonable concerns of politically motivated persecution. Then, on January 14th, 2024, Willis publicly took to the altar at Big Bethel AME Church and ascribed the charges to her not as valid objections, but as racism. First, she set the stage by crying poverty with the words, I want you all to know, I pulled out my most lavish $29.99 dress from Ross. Then she engendered sympathy with the throwaway line regarding God. But today, what he has brought you is his very flawed, hard-headed, and imperfect servant. And then promoting herself as a vehicle of God with comments like, but my God got a way of making sure no matter why you came with this message. So the theme being celebrated today is it starts with me. And I know God was telling me I'm sending you where you need to be. Yes, I was invited here to give you a message, but yet my God does what he always does. He brought a message to me. She repeatedly used God to imply that he was on her side and that she was on a divine mission. Yeah, that's terribly wrong. Terribly, terribly wrong. Terribly wrong. That in itself contains a potential jury pool, prejudiced defense, and is unbecoming of a prosecutor in a criminal case. The speech was not just an impromptu speech where she got carried away. She had written it down and thought it through beforehand. This was premeditated. It's using religious prejudice to influence the jury pool, and it's further prosecutorial forensic misconduct. Recall, this was all to obscure that she was accused of an affair with a married fan. The climax of her speech that day was, First thing they say, oh, she's going to play the race card now. But no, God, isn't it them who's playing the race card when they only question one? Isn't it them playing the race card when they constantly think I need someone from some other jurisdiction in some other state tell me how to do a job I've been doing almost 30 years? The New York Times reported, Miss Willis' performance Thursday was a different kind of response. Shot through with pride, hurt, and blustery verbal jousts, it was the antithesis of the button-up approach taken by Jack Smith, the laconic special counsel leading the 2 federal criminal cases against Trump. And it was pitched not only to Judge McAfee, who will determine whether she should be able to keep the case, but also to Fulton County voters, who will decide whether to re-elect her later this year, and who would make up a jury in the case. She may have also been speaking to a nation that is now entertaining doubts about the validity of her prosecution. She played the race card slur against her accusers. There was a hunger in the press for her commentary on the case, so she could assume the speech would become public and the results could easily influence members of the jury pool. There was no evidence of her accusers using race. Willis had the affair that she was later forced to admit in a brief on the stand to the McAfee court with one man who was one of her 3 special prosecutors. She used the fact that he was black as a shield and a weapon to use against accusations. What this does to the citizens of Fulton County, as well as actions within other parts of the state of Georgia heard in a Fulton County court, is to taint any objectivity by this woman. She pulled the race card as an improper defense, but now makes any action she takes against the person of any other race a suspect action. This is an attempt to using racial prejudice to influence the jury pool and further prosecutorial forensic misconduct. This is something the judge is basically saying, go talk to the bar committee about her. The judge said that in his decision. Go talk to a bar committee about her. You got a problem with her. In our estimation, anyone of another race should rightfully ask for another office to prosecute them should they be confronted by her or anyone else in her office. Read on in the next paragraph for another reason we hold this viewpoint. Training about racial bias and other forms of bias in the workplace is beneficial to the workplace and society at large. However, the type of training to which the Fulton County DEA office subjected their employees was itself racist and belongs nowhere in the United States. The employment race issue was uncovered on February 27th on the Breitbart website. According to Breitbart's investigation, former employees stated that, I didn't even know this, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis subjected employees to mandatory race training, forcing the entire office to rate black or white skin colors as either good or bad, according to training slides and video. If you didn't participate in the quiz, you got fired. What? Let's digress a little and consider the origin of the test D.A. Willis used. The test she used is called an implicit bias test, and Harvard University developed the slides used by her to judge her employees. As we are aware, Harvard University is compromised in educating about bias. Harvard has the lowest ranking on free speech among schools, as well as scads of alleged anti-Semitic events on campus. Harvard president equivocated about anti-Semitism from the United States House of Representatives. So they covered for all this. Harvard set up another anti-Semitism task force. Harvard's new anti-Semitism task force, set up by former President Claudine Gaines' successor, President Alan Garber, lost another member, Professor Rafaela Sadlon, on February 25, 2024. This follows the resignation of Rabbi David Wolpe, who is the ADL's first rabbinic fellow, from the predecessor anti-Semitism task force. Wolpe posted on X that both events on campus and the painfully inadequate testimony reinforced the idea that I cannot make this sort of difference I had hoped. Given the questionable bona fides in the bias arena of the origins of a test, it never should have been used, and in our opinion was a major contributor to a hostile workplace. One employee said about the test, D.A. Willis, employee from Harvard, quote, Willis pulled the mandatory test off of diversity training, but it was more so an attack on the race relations thing. The training emphasized that the United States was founder on the sins of the white man and the slaughter of Native Americans, said another. Wow. This woman's a freako. She's a freakoid. She's a freakoid. Wow. Wow. What the hell? Let's take a closer look at some race tests that Willis forced her employees to perform for fear of dismissal if they decided to forego the vile exercise. One intel, part 1 of 7, told the employee to move items to the left for white people. Items for black people were on the right. If one didn't slide the image of the white person on the black that said bad, or the image of the black person to the block that said good, the test would place an X on the screen. The test wouldn't let one continue. Completion of the test was mandatory, so each employee was forced to finish the test with its underlying evil premise. Wow. This is a reason for anyone to be removed from. Oh my God. Oh my God. I didn't see anything about this until now. One wonders if some of the staff was led to believe this was proper and that they must prosecute according to the precepts of the tests. There are variations of this racist exercise in the Harvard test that DA Willis found useful to employ. The net result was that employees engaged in a racist ordeal to save their jobs. As an officer of public trust, DA Willis instead used race as a test for continuing employment. Either she didn't review the test adequately, the most innocuous explanation, or she knew the course contents and agreed wholeheartedly. In either case, her employees suffered racist consequences fearing for their jobs. Thus, she created a hostile work environment counter to the due process clause of the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution, as well as many laws created by Congress in Section 5 of the amendment and enforcement of Section 1. The U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission contains this passage prominently on its main webpage. Harassment is unwelcome conduct that is based on race, color, religion, sex, including sexual orientation, national orientation, age, and harassment becomes unlawful where enduring the offensive conduct becomes a condition of continued employment. Wow. Wow. Or 2, the conduct is severe or pervasive enough to create a work environment that a reasonable person would consider intimidating, hostile, or abusive. Fulton County is diverse. According to the U.S. Census Bureau in 2023, the racial breakdown is roughly 44% white, 45% black, 8% Asian, 0% Hawaiian, or whatever. A handful of other, and like 9 other people in there. Okay. Willis has unfairly and dramatically tainted prosecutions of 44% of her constituency. One could reasonably argue it's more like 55% of constituency because one does not know how she feels about other races than the black race. Certainly considering whites. A black is superior to a white person as evidenced by the test she used. Is that true of other non-black races? We don't know. But would a defendant in Fulton County want to find out the hard way? Wow. This race, she's a full-blown friggin' racist. Regarding another alleged violation of this section, how does she explain her infamous Marine tweet? Willis on July 18, 2022, tweeted about the case of her campaign address, Fani Faux DA, during the time the special grand jury. The following cartoon was taken directly from her post on July 18, 2022, and was still on the site as of March 3rd, 2024. Let's see the cartoon. The hell is this? DA Willis, Fulton County, fishing expedition. I know you did the right thing for the swamp, Lindsay. I don't know what the hell this cartoon is saying. Any of you understand this cartoon? That she's fishing for, I don't know who that's supposed to be. Why is she white? I don't understand what the hell's happening. What's happening here? Fani couldn't wait to flap those lips. Before Willis, Wade slept with another prosecutor, Sonia Allen, who hired him for a jail investigation that resulted in no report. He left out that she had to dress some backwards. He did leave that out. Oh, shut up. Shut up. You stupid. I don't know what that's from. Kidding. Wow. Cartoon True was drawn by cartoonist Steve Segal in the Charleston City paper. Willis tweeted, not even retweeted, that picture and made it her own. To bind the image to herself, she captioned the picture with, "This is my first cartoon and likely the only time a boat will ever bear my name." Willis decided to make fun of a serious, extraordinary precedent-setting case was a joke to her. She didn't consider the cost to taxpayers like me or the millions in defense by several defendants over the course of years, as she posted in glee. She mocked U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham and portrayed President Trump as a drowning fish. Willis was shown catching Graham on a hook. This tweet violates both the spirit and letter of Rule 3.8G, and this was not just to inform the public, but to humiliate both the sitting U.S. Senator and former U.S. President. Correspondingly, it was to self-aggrandize Willis in the public eye while also serving to taint the jury pool and public opinion. I don't know about that. I don't even understand this cartoon even looking at it now. So I don't know about that. Contrast this cartoon with what Willis stated earlier in February 2022, quoting the article in CNN Politics on February 7th. She said, "Trump, just as every other American citizen, is entitled to dignity. He's entitled to be treated fairly." In our opinion, she considers the possible lifetime imprisonment of former president as a joke. The attention the cartoon received not because the original author, but because Willis tweeted herself, was an extrajudicial statement that demeaned the defendant and the witness. Maybe. I know it was me hearing Jill Scott sing the national anthem. The attention of this cartoon was the national anthem. The national attention that followed was to support her while destroying the reputation of two men who had not been convicted of anything in this prejudice case against the defendant. That's true. .1 Truthfulness in statements to others. Requires the lawyer not to lie. You're not allowed to make a false statement to a fact to a third person, or in the course of representing a client, a lawyer should not knowingly, and you can say representing the state, she's representing the state, shall not make a false statement of material fact, fail to disclose a material fact to a third person when disclosure is necessary to avoid assisting criminal fraudulent activity by the client, unless disclosure is prohibited by Rule 1.6, and the penalty is disbarment. During the hearing on February 15, 2024, Willis continually evaded, obfuscated, and concealed the truth. Before that, she blamed the announcement of an improper relationship on racism, as previously alleged. This section incorporates the allegations falsely attributing her opposition to race without any evidence other than to slander her accusers. And the allegation of violation of Rule 3.8G of this grievance to hide the facts, the racial barrage was just false, as her later forced brief to the court divulged. There was an affair when incorporated as alleged DA Willis to have violated Rule 4.1A and B. Allegations of violation of Rule 3.3 regarding cell phone tower discussion, text between DA Willis and Wade, phone calls resulting in alleged impeachment, both their testimony on the stand, hereby incorporating into the allegations of violating this separate rule, leads us to allege she also violated Rule 4.1A and B with the testimony. Interesting. Finally, we got some real spice out of this complaint. Some really okay, especially I like the ones that are specifically referring to a prosecutor. And that gives me some hope that at least they have jurisdiction over her. This rule deals with 8.4 deals with rules violations being convicted, committing crimes for dishonesty and deceit. Violation of Georgia rules of professional conduct for a lawyer to violate, not only intent to violate Georgia rules of professional conduct, not only assist and do so, it's do through the acts of another. Again, maximum penalty is disbarment. Incorporating the allegations from other sections of rules, if any of them are upheld by the state bar, Willis is alleged to have violated 8.4A1. Similarly, she appears to have been dishonest as to when her improper relationship began. Now that text, cell phone tower data, and phone records have revealed a different story. The impartial data tends to show us much more of a relationship than Willis and Weed alleged in their testimony on February 15th, and therefore they've been alleged to have misrepresented what their relationship was. The deceit alleges that Willis promoted racism as the motive of the defendants when they never have shown even the slightest trace of racism. Therefore, it's alleged D.A. Willis to violate Rule 8.4 A4. I like it. It is dishonest to allege it's racism. And the judge, by the way, now has issued a finding that she was definitely referring to them in the church speech. So that helps strengthen this complaint. Now remember I was saying earlier, just want to point this out. The findings by the court are likely going to be very influential with the ethics with the Bar Association. The Bar Association said she's talking about them. That's his finding. The state tried claiming it wasn't about them. Judge made a finding of fact it was about them and called this as being improper. So that really helps this complaint. National news reports allege that Willis was complicit in diverting $488,000 targeted for the creation of Center Youth Empowerment and Gang Prevention, instead going illegally toward MacBook, swag, and travel. Congress does not allow the diversion of funds for one stated purpose to go to another purpose. It's called misappropriation. Serious violation of the law, and typically the United States claws the money back and may prosecute those who misappropriate the funds. According to news sources, her high-level aide, Michael McAfee, fired the whistleblower Amanda Timpson for disclosing the diversion, and Willis is defending her aide. If the charge is true, then Willis is complicit in defrauding the taxpayers not only in Fulton County but the United States. The U.S. House of Representatives has subpoenaed Willis about this matter after she dodged previous attempts to obtain documents from her. Then you have lawyer as a public official. All public officials in Georgia who are lawyers must adhere to these rules. Okay, good. I'm liking this. I got to tell you, I'm liking this. A lawyer who is a public official represents the state is bound by the provisions of these rules. Willis, District Attorney of Fulton County, State of Georgia, elected November 3rd, 2020, sworn in for first term on January 1, 2021. Public official in Georgia, represents the state of Fulton County. Not only is she alleged to have violated these bar rules, but also the Code of Ethics of Fulton County. One of the many alleged violations of that code is Section 279B3, which states, each such report shall identify the source of each of the following received or accrued during the preceding calendar year by each person required to file such report, the person's spouse, if any gifts or favors from a single prohibited source in the aggregate value or amount of $100 or more. Willis should follow the Code of Ethics if only as an example for other employees of Fulton County. We just don't know if the aggregate amount paid for trips, dinner, swag, other items in this way exceeds $100 more than D.A. Willis put in the roughly similar expenses, although that's another finding of fact that McAfee made, that it was at least several $100s. The lack of documentation places the onus on them, not the public, to show that everything came out even. From the information we have, it appears that thousands of dollars on the side of Willis benefiting. Had Mr. Wade put in more than $100 from what Willis put in each year, she would have violated this code section for each year he was on payroll, and they spent money together. It makes a mockery to say something akin to, it all came out in the wash. We pay for roughly equal amounts. What is roughly equal? Is it off by 10, 100, 101, 1,000? Even if 101 is the violation of the Fulton County Ethics Code, read on. The money coming to her as a public official from Mr. Wade is also covered by 215-34 campaign contributions, full set of Georgia ethics found in the Rule of State Ethics Commission, Georgia Campaign Rules and Regulation link. In-kind expenditures are defined in that document as an expenditure of any goods or services for which a candidate or campaign committee did not extend payment to an end recipient for the goods or services provided, for which the campaign received the use benefit of said goods and services. Document contains an in-kind contribution in its section 189-6-07, which isn't relevant to this discussion, refers to 21.534, which states all reports shall list the following: contributions more than $100. When a contribution consists of a loan, advance, or other extension credit report shall also contain the name of the lending institution or party making the advance. And obviously, she didn't do any of that. Obviously, she did none of that. This part to me is less interesting because it's not sexy. And when I say it's not sexy, I don't just mean that it's boring to me, which it is. I'm not going to kid you. But it's also, I find that most people tend not to, they tend to look at that as not something that they're going to make a big stink over and get people in trouble for. I think the other stuff we covered could potentially cause her some serious problems if taken seriously. The complaint is going to need to overcome the standing issue, but if that's not an issue that they're going to really bank on, Fani's going to have a lot to answer for here. And I don't think she's got the answers. Now, what punishment they give? They might give a warning. That could happen. It could happen. Who knows? Who knows? Interestingly, in C, let's say for the sake of argument that Wei was not making an in-kind gift by prepaying for travel. Let's take him at his word. Say it's merely a loan that Willis would repay during the trip or sometime afterward. Then by C, it's a loan advance that must still be recorded. It was not recorded on any official document. We contend that failure to record these transactions in state campaign filings, Fulton County ethics filings constitutes a violation of 21.534. It's technically true. It tends to be very little repercussion for that sort of thing. If the precedent is set that something is not a gift, even if it eventually gets paid back, any ethics code for gifts in Georgia becomes farcical. Anytime a gift is made to an official, the defense will surely be, oh, that's not a gift. I just didn't pay it back yet. The official referred to the Fani Willis case as the defining example. Citizens of Georgia cannot let this dramatic weakening of reporting occur. That's good. You're framing it well. Framing it well. I don't expect that this part of it I don't expect that they're gonna hold her feet to the fire for this. I'm not gonna kid you. For the filing issues. Let's see this. Conduct constituting threat of harm to client's public emergency suspension. This will cover suspension of a lawyer. Upon receipt of sufficient evidence demonstrating that a lawyer's conduct poses a substantial threat of harm to his clients or the public, a direction of the chair or vice chair of the State Disciplinary Board, the Office of General Counsel shall petition the Supreme Court of Georgia for the suspension of a lawyer pending disciplinary proceedings predicated upon the conduct causing such petition. Allegations contained throughout this document show alleged violations of 8 other rules, some with possible violations of multiple subsections and items, and some with multiple instantations of a single one. Violations of most of the rules shown here have this ending. Maximum penalty of violations rule is disbarment. These are serious charges, and they are alleged by a public official against a public official. Therefore, if the chair or vice chair of the State Disciplinary Board sees fit to do so based on credible explanations of rules violations, it's requested that either one or both of them direct the Office of General Counsel to petition the Supreme Court of Georgia to suspend Fani Willis from practice law until these charges are fairly adjudicated. Good luck. Like to see it. Love to see it. Love to see it. Good luck. Due to the page limitations of agreements, we cannot include the incorporated exhibits as appendices. Instead, we footnote them or they are widely available. The complaint to the Fulton County Board of Ethics dated February 14, 2024 is incorporated as grievance as relevant information to the conduct of Fani Willis. Also reference incorporate defense arguments and defense exhibits. State of Georgia versus Trump. They're summarized by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution with full videos on YouTube. We believe the conflicts of interest all emanate from the affair that likely began in 2019. Then the fruits of that relationship were used as a scheme to take taxpayer money. The money was then diverted to state constitutional officer for a personal use. Finally, a cover-up of epic proportions that fatally tainted an internationally observed case. As they say since Watergate, it's not the crime, it's the cover-up. Nixon said about the Watergate break-in, it's going to be forgotten. It wasn't. He resigned. Likewise, when Willis emphasizes that she was a private person, by extension, we believe she hoped that no one would know of the affair and evidence of it would be lacking. We also believe she thought a cover-up would be successful. It was not. It's not that Willis didn't know better. She ran as a reform candidate for district attorney because her predecessor, Paul Howard, himself had an improper relationship with a woman who worked for him. Then Miss Willis presented herself as someone who would not repeat the past. She declared this as a central message of her campaign. Quote, I certainly will not be choosing people to date that work under me. Let me just say that. I think that what citizens are really, really concerned about is if you choose to have an inappropriate contact with employees. Citizens of Fulton County deserve better than the current and former district attorney. Same mistakes are being made, and they're costing Fulton County, Georgia taxpayers in many ways, financially and in terms of longer court times. The office of the district attorney represents the integrity and majesty of the entire state of Georgia. It should not be sullied by prurient actions, dishonesty, political gain, and personal gain that interfere with the work environment and the administration of justice. The State Bar must thoroughly investigate the DA and the effect of her actions had on her office, Fulton County, and Georgia. From the original sin of the affair, as defense attorney Harry McDougall put it, grew a series of conflicts of interest. The fallout or conflict from the affair as it pertained to the public were 1, the hiring of boyfriend as a sole source contractor. 2, acquiescence of some questionable billing by him from her. 3, abuse of power against the lover's estranged wife. 4, movement of taxpayer money through him to her, money that could have been used to reduce the Fulton County jail population. 5, time and resources used by senior prosecutors to defend her actions. And 6, damage reputation and prestige of the legal system in Georgia. She's been such a black eye of Georgia. The decision to disbar Fani Willis from State Bar Georgia is a serious matter. It means the loss of livelihood for Willis. However, she was the one who put herself in the situation. She needed to understand the consequences. She has no one else to blame. It's a high-profile public job, the most visible prosecutor in the state of Georgia. Willis has promoted her cases on national TV and books on the web and in newspapers. As such a public figure, she must comport herself with the highest ethics, reasoning, and actions. In our opinion, she's failed to do so embarrassingly and dramatically. We've alleged instead that she has violated several sections of the bar rules, some in more than one way, each case carrying a maximum penalty of disbarment. The above alleged violations of the rules approved by the State Bar show a pattern of prosecutorial, forensic misconduct, financial misconduct, and professional misconduct that would also violate rules 8.4 and 10 of the American Bar Association. As a result, she's made both Fulton County and the state of Georgia laughingstocks in the wider United States and the world. We believe that she has flouted the rule of law. If State Bar finds this true, she no longer has a place in her current position. She cannot appear before any court and command the respect of a judge, opposing counsel, or the public. If the State Bar of Georgia's handbook is to be meaningful, legal profession, public, and even if some of these allegations are true, we believe that she must be disbarred. Equal treatment of the law requires the State Bar of Georgia to investigate these charges, provide due process, and adjudicate the findings. As a Georgia resident, I'm pleased that there is such a handbook written in a language that any of us laymen can read. All I ask that be put to use fairly without fear, favor, or affection. I respectfully submit this grievance to the State Bar of Georgia in pursuit of seeking the truth, good government, transparency, ethics, and fiscal responsibility. Signed, Stephen M. Kramer. Well, there you go. There you go. Stephen M. Kramer. Whew. That was a bit long. It was a bit of a read. In summation, what I'll tell you is this. I don't like the way he started. I think he started with basically his weakest argument. It gets stronger. I think the issues about the way she comported herself on the stand, different lies that she told, I think that those are significant. I think that the statutes, I think the portions of the handbook that relate to prosecutors is particularly poignant. I'm encouraged by the fact that it does seem to govern prosecutors. It means someone's got to be able to hold her account. You would think perhaps it could be any resident of Fulton County. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Will this be taken seriously? I don't know. I'm tired of banking on believing that people are going to have the cojones. Hopefully. It sounds like fairly strong arguments with respect, specifically with respect to Rule 3.3, 3.4, 3.5. Those are the areas there which I think are the most bludgeoning. Perhaps some of those sections, some parts of Rule 8 also could be impactful. That's what I got. Oh, Angry Cenk will reappear to loser then. Losers. Those of you who had drifted off while I was reading, apologize if I just woke you up with the whole loser thing. Go back to sleep. Sleep. Just want to point out that tomorrow at 10, I'm going to be streaming Supreme Court arguments on playback. You get the link at goodlogic.locals.com. I don't know if I'm going to make much of a thumbnail. I'm just going to write SCOTUS. SCOTUS Biden v. Missouri. I want to do it really quick because I'm kind of tired. So sub up here, sub up wherever you are. I'd really appreciate it. Brit Pratt, 2014. Joe, can you please review Judge Joe Brown's perspective on Judge McAfee ruling? It's on Man Up on Dana's Pascott. The title of the video is The Ides of March. I'm too tired to do that now. I'm already 2.5 hours in. It's almost 3 o'clock in the morning, so I can't do that now. But I'll try to check it out. I was told that few people ranted the way I did it on Friday. Well, he's someone who might have ranted well. My rant was like a slow building boil until I just started losing it in the middle. The first 6 minutes, I was like, this is... I was watching it again. By the time I get to the whole iceberg clanging, I was in full throat at that point. I was in full throat. Full throat. Was actually like gearing myself before the show, because like I said, I wasn't in the mood to come out here. I was gearing myself up by like listening to myself. This is where I was up to.
And you allow this crazy, fictitious Tartuffe, this big fat Tartuffe, staring everyone in the face. And if you're unfamiliar with Tartuffe, you should look it up because it's a phenomenal play by Chaucer. I think Chaucer.
It's Moliere. I looked up after.
You need to read Tartuffe.
He did need to read Tartuffe.
It's basically a story of a priest who's sitting there as a hypocrite, basically trying to chastise everyone else while standing behind the cloth.
Maybe tomorrow.
And that's what we see from this big fat Fanny Tartuffe. This gross, disgusting, complete lack of justice, perversion of justice. She's the ultimate perversion of justice, who thinks that she should be the one in the position to hold a president to an exacting standard that no person should be able, can possibly actually meet. That's who's doing this. And this judge sits back there and allows her, in this case, to get up on the stand and patently perjure herself. And then you just call it an odor of mendacity? An appearance of impropriety? An appearance of impropriety? It goes beyond an appearance of impropriety when you know that there's impropriety. It is no longer an appearance. It is impropriety. An appearance of impropriety is people might think something. No, we know there's impropriety. It's not an appearance. It's like, oh, there's an appearance of an iceberg. That's just like 1,000 feet in front of the Titanic. It's the appearance. It's an appearance of an iceberg. Is that what you're kidding me? Are you kidding me? You should be ringing the bell. You should be clanging that thing. Clang, 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 clang. Iceberg, down ahead. Iceberg, down ahead. Iceberg, down ahead. Oh, iceberg. How do you not see? It's an appearance of impropriety. An appearance. An appearance. What does that even mean?
Like I said, I finally reached full throat. Like 15 minutes into is when I really start reaching full throat. You can check that out. That was my Friday stream if you want to hear the rest. If you missed it and you want to hear the rest of it. It starts slow. First 6-10 minutes, I'm like building up. And then like that's like 18, 19 minutes in. New member of the following, PV's dad. PV's dad. Welcome to the following. Newest member of the following. The following is not at all a cult. Type of cult. At all a cult. Not at all. I'm not the leader of the following. You know, you're a follower now. but I'm not the leader of the following. I'm a follower just like you, but it's not at all a cult. Not at all a cult type of cult. But welcome to the following. Welcome. Welcome. All right. I think I need to wrap up. I think it's time. Scorpion Black Dragon says, considering there's other Willis conduct exposed on the record that did not directly affect the prosecution's case, do you think McAfee properly punted her fate to others? No, I don't. I think he should have removed her. She still could have faced repercussions. If anything, by not holding her accountable, it helps insulate her from repercussions, because they'll be like, see, findings of the court are like that she was telling the truth there on the stand. That's how people are going to try and twist it. So, no. If you tell me that he didn't want to disbar her, that wouldn't have been appropriate. But, if he removes her, that's a step in the right direction towards the proper people disbarring her. It's a sign that, hey, she did a lot wrong here. Joe, if you get a chance, this radical seems to be Fani's mother. Really? I think that might be her. I can't go through this now. Come on. You can't put me on the spot. You can't put me on the spot like that. I can't do that now. I need to set up a stream and get back on the air in 7 hours. So I will see you all tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. I do plan on streaming SCOTUS, Supreme Court United States, oral arguments, Missouri v. Biden. Very important case. Very, 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 very important case. They happen to be calling it Murphy versus Missouri. But I'm pretty sure it's this case. I don't know. I gotta figure that out. I'm assuming that it just morphed through the appellate process. Anyhow, but it's about First Amendment as it's being addressed through social media. This is really, really big stuff. Very important stuff. I urge you, join me. You'll get a link for it on Locals, goodlogic.locals.com. Wherever you are, please like, share, and subscribe to this right here, and then follow me over goodlogic.locals.com. I thank you all for joining me. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Grifty just got done with the stream with Moxie Dame. Best stream I've had yet. Make sure you go check it out. Also go support Joe and Locals. Goodlogic.locals.com. I'll see you all over there. Stay happy. No matter what they say, do not eat the bugs. And as always, Godspeed.